As for the Broncos, man, first day in pads, which is awesome. Um, the new facility looks great. The air quality doesn't seem like it's terrific out there. Um, I've heard, and this is what you hear at the beginning of camp. It's running backs and the defense that look the best because the running backs are fresh and defense a little bit quicker to get up to speed than the offense normally. Um, but I've heard Bo looks okay. I obviously have not had the ability to be out there this year, which is a bummer. But I heard the offense looks okay. I heard both J.K. Dobbins and R.J. Harvey cracking off some runs, so that's awesome. I heard the defense looks good. You wonder how much the subtractions are going to hurt that defense. I think they still have issues at linebacker, but how much did Jim Leonard mean to this team? I think Vance Joseph is a very capable coach, so I'm not overly concerned about that. But you don't get that much esteem, momentum as Jim Leonard unless you meant something to that team. So it'll be interesting to see the effect that has. There's a question about JFM and how much he meant to the team. And so let's see. 63 million in total, 42 million guaranteed, 21 a year. You don't get paid that unless you matter. You know what I mean? And so it'll be interesting to see what losing him will do impacting this team moving forward. Greenlaw, only 7.5 million, 6 million guaranteed. Didn't play a ton. But he's going to be, I'm not sure that I believe in their linebacker depth as much as they do. And it'll be an interesting conversation throughout the year about if they have enough at that linebacker spot. Sternad's your other guy now. I've always liked Drew Sanders. He's listed as your second in your of your inside linebackers. I'm a huge Red Murdoch fan. Went to University of Buffalo, and just like Dolak went to the Rams, undrafted free agent, played well. I think Red Murdoch is going to be a similar type guy. And I have a feeling that he's going to end up taking some snaps. But that's just a hunch. But I really like him from the University of Buffalo. And I think he fits well into the defense. So we'll see. But I just think there's questions at linebacker that they have to answer. So JFM, I think they have enough talent to replace him, but I'm not sure that they have enough talent at linebacker. It's an interesting conversation. I think their defensive backfield is terrific. And so you can take a lot of pressure off a front seven when you can play the way that they can play on the back end, especially with the one thing that front seven is going to do is going to be get after the passer. And so, I think the formula on defense for them is much the same, and I don't necessarily think they need impact players at linebacker to be a successful defense. But it is an interesting spot for me and an interesting question to talk about. How much do they have there? And if we believe that they have championship caliber play. This is one of the things that I talked about when I was talking about them at the end of last season is where does the improvement come? Or do you believe that they don't need improvement? They just needed Bo to be healthy and they would have won the Super Bowl. I think with Bo healthy, I think they walked the Patriots. Very frustrating for me, the Patriots. I think they're a product of their schedule. I think Drake May is good, but I don't think their team overall was very good. I think their defense was not very good at all. And I mean, Chargers with no offensive line, Texans with a quarterback that couldn't play, and Broncos with a backup QB. And it's hard for me to buy the Patriots. I'm interested what other people think. If you think I'm being too harsh on them, but I don't buy the Patriots as AFC contenders for this year. I think they got a little bit better. I think they have some pieces that are real nice, but I just think if they had to play the Jaguars or the healthy Broncos or play the Bills, like the other AFC playoff teams, they would have gotten smoked. I really believe that. And I think the Broncos with a healthy Bo Nix, 21-10 or something. You know what I mean? Like, I really think they would have worked them. So I'm just not a believer in the Patriots, and that's probably a little bit of a bias on my part, but I don't know. I think Drake May is a good quarterback. Don't get me wrong. Can he put up another MVP type season? We'll see. But I think they're due for a regression for sure. It takes me back to the Broncos. The question that I like to ask people is, where does that extra come from? Right? Like, you just need a little bit more. What is going to push you over the edge? And so much about the playoffs in the NFL is just luck, man. It's one game. You know what I mean? Like, you have a bad game and it writes the story of your season. And then for the Broncos, you have an injury and it writes the story of your season. So if you want to tell me that if the Broncos had Bo Nix, they're in the Super Bowl, I'd listen to that for sure. If you want to tell me that the Broncos win the Super Bowl, I don't know that they would have beat the Seahawks as last year. That doesn't mean that they couldn't maybe beat them this year. But if you want to talk about the Broncos as a Super Bowl contender, my question is, where do you get that little bit extra from? You're losing guys on the defensive side of the ball. I still think you can be as effective as you have been the past couple of years. If Sean Payton stays out of Vance Joseph's way and just lets him cook. But then that being said, so you go over to the offensive side of the ball, and I do think the addition that they made there is a notable one. I think bringing in Jalen Waddle can reshuffle how defenses handle that entire offensive scheme. And I like Courtland Sutton a lot. But he's not the same type of explosive player that Jalen Waddle is. And so if you slide Sutton into a second wide receiver role and you put Waddle in that first wide receiver role, there's things that defenses have to account for that they didn't necessarily when your best wide receiver was Courtland Sutton. It does, however, bring me the question of what is happening with Marvin Mims. Like, I just don't know. Can he not do it? And this coaching staff is protecting him. I don't know. He's no doubt explosive. Right? So how you can't find snaps and touches for him last year without Jalen Waddle on the team. I don't know how you're going to do it this year. You still have Troy Franklin. You still have Pat Bryant. I love their wide receiver depth. And that's the effect of adding a first round. Well, I mean, he was. But adding a top flight wide receiver, right? Everybody slots down one, and all of a sudden you really like the matchups all these guys are getting. You know what I mean? And I think that's a great thing for this offense moving forward. And all that is to not even mention Evan Ingram. So, listen, I think Bo proved a lot last year. I still think, as far as AFC quarterbacks go, you know, is he in the top 5? I don't know. So you're talking about middle of the AFC quarterback, which is no slight. I mean, the AFC is loaded when it comes to QB. So what are you going to ask from him this year, and how much can you ask of him? I think the play calling going to Davis Webb is really interesting. Can Sean Payton control himself enough to make sure he doesn't put his hand in the cookie jar? When he doesn't like a call, when things aren't going their way, can he control himself enough to not say, I'm calling this series? And one of the things I saw is Webb going to be on the sidelines or up in the booth? And I think that's really interesting too, because, I mean, of course, he'll be in communication with Peyton either place, but things get hot on that sideline. You know what I mean? And so Peyton has said a few times, has admitted to letting his emotions get the best of him. Whether he was hopped up on a couple lattes talking about Nathaniel Hackett, or, you know, he's on the sideline arguing with Bo about something. And when we've seen that, people, it's been, for the most part, fine. It was a disaster with Russell Wilson because he just whimpered like a dog. But, you know, when he went after Bo a couple times and Bo shot back at him, and I think that's healthy. I think that's okay. And I know Davis is used to being on the sideline, and he used to be kind of the peacemaker in those situations. It'll be interesting if Peyton gets hot at Davis Webb. You know, is it a situation that's easily diffused if Webb is on the sideline, or is it something that you have to talk about? Who's gonna be the peacemaker? Who's gonna be the everybody chill guy between Peyton and Webb if they're on the sideline and they start going at it? So like I said, I think it's important that Peyton keeps his hand out of the cookie jar, even if things aren't going great. And, you know, different head coaches at different times have had trouble with that, not having full control. But I think you also saw a couple of times last year why Sean Payton did this. I don't think he's losing a step. Want to make that clear. But his decision-making was a little bit slow at times last year, Peyton. And you saw Bo get frustrated. I need the play call. Let's go. Get it into me with more than 12 seconds left. And it wouldn't even be 12 seconds because the mic would be cut off. But you know what I mean? Like, get the play call into me faster so I can get everybody lined up and get a look. And you saw that from Bo a few times last year, and I think a few times the year before that as well. And so is that part of the reason that Sean gave up the play calling duties to Davis Webb? Obviously, part of it is that he wanted to keep him and was afraid that he was going to go somewhere else. So long term, is Sean Payton going to be sitting there being like, I could do better? Because I think that's a big thing in all roles. I mean, if you're sitting in an office somewhere watching this, you think about your job. When your boss is constantly looking over your shoulder or, asking you to do things that you don't want to do or thinking I can do them better, it's tough to do your job. Like, you have to enable your workers. You have to empower them. And so if Sean is sitting there and just, nitpicking every detail and taking play calling from him here and there, I just think that's a real ugly scenario to get yourself into with Davis, and I just don't think it's going to let him be the best version of him. So I think all that conversation is super interesting. Where will Davis Webb be? What will be his role exactly? And how much does what he want to do differ from what Sean Payton would want to do? Obviously, it's not a new offense or anything like that, but the aggressiveness, how much does it differ from what Sean Payton would want to do? And how much does Sean Payton, because, every head coach does that, right? How much does Sean Payton have to get on the headset and be like, yeah, I don't want to run this here. I want to throw the ball. I think we all know Sean Payton's not getting on there saying I want to run the ball here, but maybe he does. So I just think it's an interesting conversation to have about, where they will be and what the plans will be for them in those situations as they kind of feel each other out, head coach to play caller, and a head coach that hasn't had somebody else call the plays ever, at least in a really long time. It'll be interesting, all of that. What else do I want to talk about when it comes to the Broncos? The new stadium, the PSLs, and everything that goes along with it. What a conversation we're having here. So I'm on two sides of this. First of all, Nuggets. Broncos saying that the city of Denver dragging their feet a little bit. Hi, welcome to bureaucracy. I feel like that should have been expected. I don't think it opens by 2031. It'd be interesting if it did. I don't think there's a ton wrong with the current stadium. If you had to play 10 more years there, I think you could. It's just not a stadium that's up to the standards of, the Waltons. Loaded, you know what I mean? So they want one of the best stadiums in the league, and you can understand that. I am very much on their side for a lot of this stuff, and part of the reason is because they're paying for it. They are paying for it. So, of course, there will be taxes for infrastructure and stuff like that. It's not to say that the taxpayers of Denver are getting off scot-free, but they're not asking for $750 million. You know what I mean? It's, unless I missed something and something has changed recently, they're funding the stadium. And so if you do that, I don't care if you, I generally am against PSLs. I think it's a little bit ridiculous. I agree with the fans saying that. To pay for the right to buy something is backwards. So I'll give you that. But what I will say is that it's a regular thing in the NFL now. And I don't think any new stadium has been built that didn't have PSLs. So if the Walton Penners are going to fund it themselves and it's not taxpayer money and they want to do PSLs, this might be the first time that I'm okay with it. Because if they're not taking taxpayer money, this is essentially them saying, yeah, no, the people who are going to use the stadium are going to help fund it. Kevin in Illinois, this is the Broncos trying to put some pressure on the city government, no doubt, to give them concessions. I wouldn't put it past Denver's ignorant government to be demand land acknowledgments. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. No, I don't think that's what it is. I think Denver just wants their hand in the pot. Yeah, the Walton Penners have gone above and beyond. I think, and I don't know how many people know this, I'm sure you do, but Denver technically owns Mile High Stadium currently. And so they profited from the Broncos playing there. Broncos sign a lease. You know what I mean? Like, it's a city facility. The new one won't be. If the Walton Penners fund it outright, the city has no say in it. So, yeah, I think the Broncos are trying to put some pressure on the city government and get some concessions out of them. But on the flip side of that, I don't know that they'll get them, because I think the city of Denver is going to try to find as many ways to keep their hand in that pot, which they're currently being cut out of. And so I think it could get uglier before we see any kind of resolution. But it'll be interesting to see how much the city of Denver pushes back. Here's the thing. Like I said, I don't think they need a new stadium right now. So I feel like the city will continue to fight, because I don't think there's any threat of the Broncos leaving. Lots of times, like, think about when Minnesota, when they built their new stadium, the roof collapsed on the other one. You know what I mean? Like, they had to do it. And if they didn't find some sort of resolution, the Vikings are going to leave. I don't think that's the case here in Denver. I think they could play at Mile High, like I said, for another decade. And so I think the city's going to play hardball, because I just don't think you can move the Denver Broncos. I don't think the NFL would let it happen. Andy has talked about this for years. The people that he talked to inside the NFL, they need the Broncos, and they need them to be good, because there are only so many Western cities that have teams, and that 225 slot on Sundays, you gotta have a good team play there. Kansas City does not like playing in that slot. They want to play the 12 o'clock game local. Their 12 o'clock game, they want to play that morning slot. And so I know TV-wise that's always been a point of contention, that even when the Chiefs are good, they don't want to play at 3. They want to play at noon. And so the Broncos playing at 225, along with the Rams and Seahawks and Niners out west, like, those are their big brands. And so they would just never let the team leave here. I would never come to that. So you were mentioning the city being stupid. I think the city knows how much power they have, how much power they don't have, and I think the city wants their hand in the pot, So it'll be interesting how that plays out going forward. I always thought it was ambitious to say 2031, and don't get me wrong, I know money makes it happen. So if anybody could get it done, it's the Walton Penners. And they've been terrific owners so far. I 100% agree with you on that. Everything that there's been some sort of complaint about or anything like that, be it the facilities, how they treated the families, all that stuff. The field. I mean, remember the first year they were here, the field was real beat up, and they were going to play one more game on it, and they still resodded it. I think they've done a tremendous job. All the alumni that I talked to have said that they're terrific when it comes to that as well, which is a little bit of a change. Just more organized and stuff, not more want to for the outreach, but just more organized and better run. So, yeah, I mean, they've been terrific owners. But I think there is a part of the city that knows that they're getting cut out of this deal because the Walton Penners can afford to just do it themselves. And it's going to be interesting to see how much give the city has without making sure they crack off a piece for themselves. Broncos should build a new stadium with new infrastructure outside of town. Just my thoughts. Man, it's super interesting. I know there are sports guys who have advocated for that. But I think for the most part, the fan base would not be happy with the Denver Broncos playing in Castle Rock or, off Pena Boulevard or something like that. There is something to be said for the fact that this ownership group could put down enough infrastructure and not think twice about how much it cost them. That's 100% true. But I think they found a real good location in the city. I think they can afford to do it on their own, but still inside the city limits. And part of that is having enough money that they can lobby, that they can support politicians who support them. I think all that matters. And so it might not be 2031, but if they have to get some people elected to make sure that they get their stadium done, that's the way, unfortunately, our world works. So, they'll put their money behind candidates who are going to give them what they want, and might take an extra couple of years, but they'll get it done. They will get it done. So I think it's important to have the stadium inside the city. I think there is too much urban sprawl, in particular in Denver, in comparison to other cities, that to go to a place where there's nothing and to build the stadium, you just have to go way too far. You have to go way too far. I mean, it's driving from one side of the city to another is a 3-hour experience. That's crazy. And it's not what it's like. I mean, you drive 3 hours, you get from New York City to Philadelphia. You know what I mean? And so I just think if you were to go to where there's nothing to build the stadium, you would be hours away from Denver. And I hate when teams do that. I really do. I hate them calling Foxborough Boston Stadium for the World Cup. It's an hour and a half away. You know what I mean? I hate when teams do that. And I think if you do that, you're only doing it so you could throw your hands up and be done with it. And I think it's worth the fight. I think it's worth the fight to have the Denver Broncos in the city. I think they've got a good location for it, a part of the city that is very industrial, needs a little bit of a rebirth. Something new there will absolutely change the city, the traffic flow, the outlook, just like Coors Field did for Lodo. I think it's the right move. I really do. And I think this group has the ability to be able to do it. So, and listen, if that costs PSLs, I don't know, maybe it's just me because I'm not paying it and it's not my money, but it might be the first time I'm okay with the PSLs. Like if they pay for everything, if they don't take tax dollars to build that stadium, like of course there will be tax dollars for infrastructure. I mean, yeah, of course. But if they don't take tax dollars to build that stadium, it might be the first time I'm okay with PSLs. Generally, I would be very against it, but they fund the whole thing themselves. Then I think they have the right to do that if they want to. It'll be interesting. And, I know they're going retractable roof. Kansas City also going retractable roof, which means by the time this stadium is done, whole AFC West is playing indoors. It's kind of crazy. I mean, if you had to pick, I guess you'd probably say AFC North. But if you had to pick one that wasn't going to go all indoors, AFC West might have been one of my first choices. So, I don't know. It's just kind of crazy. PSLs will cause more selling to away teams fans, and that will suck, but it's already bad. Yeah. I mean, I know Denver people hate the fact that it has gotten like this, but it's a transplant city. It just is. It is too nice. People like living here. And so, people have been moving here like crazy. And part of that is you see Boston fans at the Avs games and Laker fans at the Nuggets games. And yeah, you're gonna see other fans in the stadium a lot. But I think Bronco fans are good fans, and I think they're really proud. And I think they will do their best to make sure that they, even if they do sell their tickets, which I think you're right, if you have PSLs, they're going to be trying to cover some of that cost. So they're going to be selling games. But if they do sell their tickets, Bronco fans, I think, will do the best they can to make sure that it gets into the hands of another Broncos fan rather than the opposing team. But I mean, it's just a fact of life. The reason that you see some of these other towns where Pittsburgh, where everybody's waving a terrible town, nobody wants to live there. Respectfully. I mean, it's not a city that a bunch of people are moving to. The people who move to Pittsburgh are from West Virginia or Happy Valley or whatever, right? Like, you don't have a ton of people moving there from all over the country. Yeah, I mean, saying it's a destination city, Kevin, absolutely right. And so it's one of the things that you just kind of got to deal with for the fact that you live somewhere awesome. Not you in particular, Kevin, but you meaning the Bronco fans. It's something that you got to deal with. So I think as we move into the future, the NFL is going to try to find ways with ticket resellers and so on and so forth to limit where you can buy those tickets from and make it so more of the fans in the city get those tickets, be it locking zip codes or something like that. But even that, I've got a Denver zip code and I'm a Bills fan, you know what I mean? So how are you going to stop me from buying tickets to the Christmas Day game? You can't. And so yeah, I mean, it's just something you got to deal with. Monk, I remember you from before, I feel like. But good to see you back. What about the Bears? It's a really interesting conversation. And this is, to Kevin's point earlier, we were talking about how I think they found a good spot in the city that needs a little bit of rejuvenation. It's right off the highway. I think it's a good spot to build that stadium, and I think the uber wealthy Walton Penners will just find a way to get it done there. You know what I mean? You have the opposite situation in Chicago. Their owners do not have that kind of capital. And I know they're one of the legacy families in the NFL, but in a city like Chicago, they do not have the capital to buy up a whole bunch of land and say, we're building this stadium by ourselves right here, whether you want us to or not. They need the help from the city. And so I did feel like it was a little ridiculous them going to Indiana. But then when I pulled up the map and actually looked at it, like, I think it was Arlington Heights is the other spot that they were looking at. The Arlington Heights site is further away from current Soldier Field than they would be in Hammond. So, I mean, I said openly here before, I don't like when they build stadiums an hour and a half away from the city and then say that they're in the city. The Jets and Giants not acknowledging that they play in New Jersey is annoying. But that's only 10 minutes away from New York City. You know what I mean? And I feel like that would kind of be the situation here. I don't know, man. It's tough because where do I think they should build the stadium? Right where Soldier Field is. Build the stadium there. But that ownership group just does not have the ability or the capital to do that. So whether they put it up north in the suburbs or down south in Indiana, man, I just, the option I want is the one that's not on the table. And that's for them to build it right where Soldier Field is right now. Because I think there's something to be said for having the stadium in the city. I think it changes the vibe. And I think there are two extremes to it. You can either be like the Bills and the Packers and put it in a neighborhood and try to build a culture around that, which I think is very cool and I'm fine with, where people park on lawns and tailgating is your thing and all that. Like, if you want to be like that, then fine. But just to drive out to the middle of nowhere so the owners can put in some strip mall and make you pay extra for parking and food and everything because they own everything out there, I think that kind of sucks. I would rather you put it in the middle of a city where, like, you know, some entrepreneurs can buy up spots and, you know, put bars there, and you have options to go to a 7-Eleven and get your beer, and you don't, you know what I mean? Like, you don't have to just buy from the uber wealthy person who put all this out there. And so it's kind of one of those things where, I don't know, Arthur Blank, I think did it the right way in Atlanta where he's not gouging you for everything. But how many owners are going to do that? And so when I go to the Foxborough Mall, and I mean, I don't know if you've ever been to these stadiums, but it sucks. The experience sucks. I can say that about Arizona too. It's the same thing. They built it way out and it's far away from, that city is spread out across miles and miles, but they built it way out there. You show up, you have to pay to park at their lot. You can only go to the bars in the little mall that they put in. It's just stupid, man. Like, it sucks. The experience sucks. and it's made to drive you into the stadium. So you go and you spend $20 on a beer in there, you know? Cincinnati has a nice setup. I do know it's right downtown, next to downtown in Cincinnati, but I did think it was like kind of by the river. I haven't been, but like, I mean, I'll just point to Coors Field for the Denver people. They plopped it like right on a roadway. You know what I mean? Like it was all train tracks and factories there. And so it made sense to put it there. And a ton of entrepreneurs did well and made money, and they put apartments there and bars and restaurants, and you know, it's kind of died down recently, but it was a great place to be for a long time. And so I'm for Denver doing that again. And for Chicago, that's what I would want. I'd want them to put it in the city, but you're not going to get that because their owners just cannot afford to do that. So my question would be, if they're putting it in Hammond, you know, will that town embrace it and build up around it and make it a destination and so on and so forth? Because that'd be awesome if that was the case. I don't think if they put it in Arlington Heights, if they put it in the suburbs, it was like a racetrack or something like that. So if they put it up there, I just feel like it's going to be the shitty corporate, you know, thing that we all hate. And like, who doesn't go to one of these places and see $14 for a hot dog and $22 for a beer and just like want to shoot themselves? I mean, come on. That has to piss all of us off. I can't be the only one. So, you know, to say, oh, they should build it further out or something like that, it's just not my thing.